Yo, what's up, everyone? Surprise, I'm the third speaker. I'm unannounced, but last week I saw Mark at app.js, and when he told me he was going in London, I was like, oh, man, I'm jealous. I want to come because I absolutely love this city. I used to live there, worked at DICE, and yeah, London is a blast. So here I am today. So, quick intro. I'm Ax. You can call me Ax, it's easier. And I'm now working at Showtime. And at Showtime, we build a Web3 social network. And by building this new app, which is a universal app, so that works on iOS, Android, and on web, we eventually ended up building a whole design system. So just a quick intro to what I mean by universal. I mean that works on all the platform, aka cross-platform or multi-platform. But in this case, it's really about supporting web as a first-class citizen too. And by design system, I mean a library of UI elements or other components that share a common visual language. So let's go. I did this talk at app.js, and I got a lot of feedback. And one of them was like, just show it what it is about. So here is some code. This code works on iOS, Android, and on web. You can see that you can import the view and the text as you would on React Native, but from our own Showtime universal packages, and you can style them using Tailwind. It's very easy, and it works amazingly well for us. Spoiler alert, we are now working, like literally right now, working on supporting actual CSS on web, because right now it was using CSS in JS, because React Native for web was only supporting CSS in JS for pretty good reason, but we eventually ended up wanting using actual CSS for example, using meta queries and doing server-side rendering for the user profile on our web app. So it's going to get much better pretty soon. And now people talk to me like, hey, just show me some design right now. So here is some design. We don't have docs yet, but in my opinion, we have a pretty cool showcase app, which is literally the Showtime app, which is a real-world app. So to me, it's the best example you can get. We use absolutely all the components we created, of course. We actually iterated on all these components in a real-world app with real-world users. So it's battle-tested. It's working pretty great, to be honest. And so on the left, you can see the Showtime web app on desktop, and on the right, the Showtime web app on mobile. So it's actually the same code, the same design. It's just shrink down or shrink up. I wanted to share early, without even having docs or whatever, but we do have a storybook at universal.showtime.xyz. So if you want to check, it's not great, but again, we have a very good real-world app, again, that's already live in production and used by a real-world user. So showtime.xyz if you want to give it a try. But going back to the story, now that you know what I'm talking about, how it started. Why do I even thought about building a universal design system? So back in January 2021, just before I joined Expo, I shared a crazy idea with Charlie Shiver, the CEO of Expo. And I said, hey, Charlie, I have a crazy idea for Expo. It's a premium design system for Expo apps. You can use it to build your apps faster. You can think of it as like Expo modules, but for UI components. But why do people even want this? And I said, it's less line of code, so less bugs. It's designed and implemented by the best designer. It's universal. It's working on Expo Web and Next.js thanks to React Native for web. It's responsive. As you just saw, it's pretty useful. It's integrated with the Expo modules, with all the Expo APIs. And it can also include native UI components. So for example, if you want a native drop-down menu or context menu on iOS, which is looking very good, you can also use this directly. And how it's going, we just published last week under the showtime.xyz namespace 42 components on NPM. So you can right now use the components I just shared, the view, text, and you will see pretty soon a bunch of very useful components. You will just say like, but why do you even need a universal app? Why do you want a universal design system? Like the components are very different from a platform to another. It's probably hard, or like you make just your life harder by sharing all these components. But I just respond with our own experience at Showtime. It actually made our code much easier to maintain. It made our team move much faster. And it also forced us to create a very good app. And what I mean by very good app is that you need to think about all your components in a way that works on all the platforms, that actually respect the platform differences, and also all the screen sizes. So if you have an app that works really well on mobile, how does it work on a tablet, and how does it work on responsive? Just improving incrementally all these screens, all these platforms will definitely make your app better. So if you increase your UX on iOS, it probably will also improve your experience on. So that's really why I think that sharing your code and having only one code base for your app is really making your life better. And if we take a step back again, like in terms of how you architecture your team, if you are a CTO and you're like thinking about who to hire, who to work with, and how to move as fast as you can on your app if you're an early stage startup, having a monorepo where you share all your code will definitely make your team move faster, and your code quality will be just much better if there is a lot of engineers working on the same code base every day and having all this code in the RAM. Like it's very, very useful. So again, not just like it's cool to use this new tech, but also it's making your team more efficient. So how to build your universal design system? You can build your own, like we did. So for that, I would recommend to create your own monorepo with your packages/design system folder, and just like create your components, starting with the easiest one and going further. But you can also now use Universal to build on top of our components. So it's pretty easy to do. Anyway, I always recommend to create your own packages/design system folder, so you can really like have control over what you do. And you can just import our components and quickly like customize them and export them again. That's actually a very good practice. And so the what is Universal? To me, it's not another new framework or even a new design system. Like, honestly, I don't really care about the visual design of the design system. That's not really what matters to me. So you can think of Universal as a meta framework. We don't reinvent the wheel, we just use what is best. So on web, we use Next.js. On React Native, we use Expo. We use Reanimated and Motif for animations. Like we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We just use what's best, and we make it work together as a nice UI and UX experience. So I like this analogy of like, you know that Google with Android and Flutter, they have material design. And for a Flutter dev, it's pretty neat. Like you get started in like 1 hour, you already have a pretty good looking app. With Apple on iOS, iPadOS, macOS, tvOS, you have SwiftUI and the human interface guidelines, which again look very neat, very neat. So now React has seen a lot of improvements and new experiments like Radix UI, Headless UI, and Material UI, who ship with unstyled components that lets you create your own component in a very, very nice way. And so now I like to think that React Native as Universal, this new design system that is in a way a superset of all the React Native components. To me, in the end, it will be just React. Like it's a part of React Native, but even if you just use React DOM, you will benefit from actually using this kind of component and having this nice abstraction over some of the components you actually use. So it's merely what React and React Native should be when they are used together. So we want to help you create your own design system, again, that works on iOS, Android, and on web, on mobile, on tablet, and on desktop. And really that follows the platform and the screen size guidelines. But while doing that, we want to unify the UX. So your users, and that's what matters, get a very good experience across all their devices. I already open sourced it last week, so sorry I can't do that again, but we open sourced it last week. I will still try to show you a bit around the code base. So you can go on GitHub, showtime-xyz/showtime-frontend. You have a bunch of links, a bunch of links there if you want to try the app, if you want to go around. So in the apps folder of the monorepo, you will see the Expo app, the Next app, the Storybook React Native app, and the Storybook React app. So the Storybook React app is a universal.showtime.xyz app. I will show it in 1 minute. And in the packages, we have the packages/app, which is a universal app with all the code shared across all the platform, and the design system. And in the design system, you can see a bunch of components. So we worked a lot in 6 months, and I'm very glad we finally show it to everyone. We release the components via this pretty cool tool called Bit. So you can go on the bit.cloud/showtime/universal website and see how the components are released. It's actually a very nice way to also, if you really want to go deep in using Showtime universal design system, you can just okay, I'll do this demo quickly, but you can actually import in your own Bit workspace all the components. And it's if you fork the components, you can actually modify them and then contribute back if you want to, or just go your way. So that's Bit. NPM, you all know that, so I won't show it, but so the storybook, I have the storybook loaded here. You can see that's the accordion, we have the alert component, we have the bottom sheet. Props to you, Mo. I don't know where you are. But props to Mo. And I won't show all the components, it's becoming quite boring, but you get the gist of it. And the Figma too. I can probably show the Figma quickly. But we have a very neat Figma too with all the components. So for now, it's very tied to our own visual design. It's obviously our own design system, but in the future, I want us to move away from this visual design, and I want it to be very nice and easy to customize for anyone who wants to make it their own. Okay, so going back to actually what we do. So I already teased you with this, but we use Tailwind for styling and theming. Because to me, right now, it's really the best solution. But again, it's very personal. So in the end, we will ship with unstyled component that you can style with your own CSS or CSS in JS or any solution that you want. There is a lot that I found pretty interesting. But to me, Tailwind is great if you have web developers in your team that already know Tailwind and you just want to make them React Native developers. If you are a React DOM developer and you came to this code base in a day or two, you will be able to contribute to the code. So again, it's not only just about code, but about how you architecture your team and how you make anyone, really any front-end engineer, very capable on your team. So, oh no, I don't know React Native. No, that's bullshit now. You know React, you can do you can work on a React Native code base. And honestly, that's what I saw. Any people I hired in my team, in only a day or two was able to quickly catch up on our stack. So I'm really proud of it. And just a quick example, but here you can see the dark utility. So for dark mode, it's really the nicest way for me to actually do dark mode. And then you can do responsive and dark mode at the same time with the utility tokens from Tailwind. So that's something that really got a lot of traction in the React Native React DOM ecosystem, and now is gaining traction in the React Native ecosystem. Sorry. So that's my 2 cents, but again, that's probably something that will end up being your choice in the end. So universal UI, that's a lot of high quality components that's working on all the platform, iOS, Android, and web, but maybe one day desktop too, macOS and Windows. That's something I really wanted to exist. It's the whole point of React Native, right? And right now it's working with Expo and Next.js. So our components are using the Next.js router on the web. So if you're familiar with Solid library by Fernando, we also use that in production. So all our components are also tied to this very nice ecosystem. So you can get the alert button, bottom sheet, image, modal, pressable scale, select, tab view, text, toast, video view, like you name it. We probably build it. Quick note also on type. We just found a way to use cap size, which is a very nice utility to actually crop the padding around your fonts. So you may know that on web, based on the browser, or on native, on iOS and Android, the fonts are pretty hard to get around because there is some padding applied on your fonts. So cap size is a nice utility to actually get rid of this and do your own styling. So just found a way to use that with Tailwind. It's in the typography package. It's open source. Definitely recommend to check it. Okay, live demo. Once again, wish me luck. So that's a Showtime website. Actually, that's a staging website, so you get a preview. So that's my profile, nothing very interesting, but I just want to give you a tour of the components. So actually something that I can spoil now. I couldn't do that last week, sorry, because Fernando didn't do this talk yet, but now I can say it's using the Zigo drop-down menu. So it's actually using Radix UI because we are on web. And you can see that's a pretty neat drop-down menu that we can style very nicely. That's a feature that's not released yet, but now a creator can create their own free NFT drop. So if you're a creator and want to engage with your community, you can create a drop where you give access to maybe a badge or any sort of NFT that you will love to attribute some kind of utility. So if you are a musical artist or a DJ, or you actually produce your music live, if you do a NFT drop and your fans can claim it because they were one of the best listener on Spotify, or they were here at the past event or whatever, really you can be creative. With this badge, your fans will be able to, let's say, access a pre-sale before everyone, so they can get rewarded for being a fan of yours. So that's a neat feature we are going to launch maybe tomorrow or maybe next week. I'm not sure. But so going back to the model, it's a component that's pretty reusable. So I'm very excited because as a fan, you will be able to just claim a free NFT. You don't need to care about the gas fees. We just pay for them. So we're really about to onboard a new generation to Web3, and that's actually what we really want. Yeah, thanks, Mark. No, I need to make it more exciting, but it's really a revolution. Right now, it's pretty bad because you need to know what's a wallet, what the blockchain is, but we really want to make it more usable. So I shouldn't even say NFT, it's a badge that you can get from your creator. And we just want to make it just simple to use and easy to understand. So that's why we want to build a very easy to use website and web app. So again, show a little bit of the components, but that's a select, that's a tabs, a component. Anyway, I will let you play with this. And then there is the mobile version. That's actually the exact same on iOS and Android. When I say exact same, I mean for the website, for the design. Again, you can see all the components. So yeah, I'll let you play around on the app. But for me, it's really a game changer to be able to, oh shit, to be able to do this kind of stuff. And you can imagine that as a team, it really like help us go super, super fast. Because once we create a component on one platform, it's pretty easy for us to just reuse it elsewhere. But that's UI component. So for the most part, it's pretty easy to use, but I just showed you the drop-down menu, which to me is more like a UX thing, because based on the platform, it behaves pretty differently. And that's also the same for the models. I just show you a model that's like kind of centered dialogue, but how do you want it to behave on mobile? So actually, I haven't showed it, but I will in a sec. But on mobile, it's probably more like a bottom sheet that you want. So for this, we created this pretty neat with modal screen HOC to easily handle the screen that's a model. It's using the modal sheet component, and the modal sheet component is smart. It knows that if it's a small screen, it's probably a model like a model that's a bottom sheet. So it's using Mo bottom sheet component. Actually, that's Mo that built this. So shout out to him. We work with Mo and Margello. They are incredible. So definitely recommend working with them. Not too much because we still want to have some time with them. But yeah, so we have this crazy component that behaves correctly both on mobile, but also on tablet and desktop. And the most like crazy important part is that plays nicely with navigation. So again, we use Solito, which in fact uses React navigation on native and the Next.js router on web. That's a lot of moving parts. So I won't go deep in the code base, but definitely recommend checking these components as it's open source now. And for the demo, on the left, you can see that's iOS form sheet model that's using the React navigation model, and it's a native one. So as an iOS user, you expect this kind of experience, right? You don't want a shitty looking, like web-looking web app. You want the native one. On web, it's almost the same as I showed earlier during the live preview. It's the centered dialogue. And on right, you can see on the mobile web, that's a bottom sheet. So that's all that Universal is about. It's abstracting away all the complexities and making it great for your users. So to me, it's like, this is the way. We need to do that. So either you do like universal code with React Native for web, you use Reanimated, that works on web. We actually work with Software Mention, Fernando, and a bunch of talented people to make Reanimated more suitable to the web, because right now the bundle size is pretty huge. So we are working on it, but it's a viable solution now. We have again a production web app that's using it. So you can work with React Native for web, Reanimated Moti, gesture handler to create components that works everywhere. But sometimes you really want to use a component for web specifically, for iOS specifically, or for Android specifically. And sometimes it's really dependent on the platform, so you don't want to import unused code in your bundle. Like, just want the feeling of the native experience. So I showed you the drop-down menu. Actually, Fernando just merged a pull request from Nishan on our team. Shout out Nishan. He just created this Android native menu for Zigo. So it's 0.4.0 if you want to check it out. But now it's using the exact same structure I'm going to explain. So on web, you use React DOM module because sometimes there is amazing modules that already like exist for a while now, and that's like battle tested, bulletproof. So you can use Radix UI packages or Headless UI. The select I just showed you on the live demo was from Headless UI. So it's crazy good. It's used by a lot of apps. So on web, for some components, you just want to use that. On iOS, you probably want a native iOS module. So I showed the native modal, but for Zigo, the drop-down menu we use in Universal too, you want the native menu. And on Android, you also want So in my opinion, the shitty looking menu, but like that's the experience you expect from using Android, right? And so now you can also use that for the native menu. So we have more example. If you dig into the code base, you will see that to me, it's the nicest way to create universal components and that really respect the platform. And a pretty good thing to do when you use React DOM modules directly from your Next.js web app is that it's also coming with accessibility for the most part. So I know Nicolas, who created React Native for web, shared a tweet where he doubted like, is this even like a good thing to do? Because accessibility is not great for all the React Native APIs. It's not really good. And so our solution right now is like sometimes when you really want something that's pretty complex, just use the native. Like in this way, like for me, when I say native for the browser, it's the React DOM components. So anyway, that's something I find really interesting, and you don't want to end up using the if platform.os blah, blah, blah in your code. So that's something you can end up doing a lot with this first approach. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. So you just want to like create separate files, and that's a better way to do it. And actually, if you find yourself creating these conditions, if platform, blah, 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 that's probably an abstraction that needs to be handled by your design system. So when you use Universal or your own design system, you probably create this abstraction layer that's a very good thing. So as the end user, being the developer who creates an app, you don't really care about this logic of checking if the code will run correctly on this platform or this platform. It's actually our job to make your life better and to have platform-specific stuff already figure it out. So I'll go quickly on the roadmap, but last week I was like, we need to use React Native for web v0.18. That's just released, so that's done. Using Tailwind CSS React Native to use proper CSS on web, that's a work in progress. We are working with Mark, the creator of this library, to make it work correctly with our, again, a real world app. So that's where it's exciting. It's like we can test it with a proper app. Then we want to make it work seamlessly in like your apps. So I'm talking with some people to actually make this happen. Then we'll focus on accessibility and creating some docs, and finally getting some support from the community. And the V2 will be all about styling, shipping with unstyled version of the components. So that's really the end game of our library. It's to create a Radix-like experience for developers. I'll go back to this in a sec. And then getting support from big players. So that could be Expo, Software Mention, but also like big companies like Microsoft, Facebook, and others. We really think that there is a very nice opportunity for us as a community to create a very good design system that's not opinionated on design, again, but on good APIs and good defaults. So that's where I was going with the vision. It seems counterintuitive, but to me, the design system that will win, like the best design system, the design system that you want to use, it won't include any visual design. It's not about like how nice your buttons are looking or whatever, like it doesn't really care. It's not only about the visual design. Design could also be about the UX design. So the model I just showed you, how does it behave on different size of screens? How does it behave on the different platforms? That's what I call the UX design, of course. And also the API design. As an end user, being a developer, you want to use the simplest, the nicest APIs. So that's something also that we need to figure out as an ecosystem. And that's what I call the whole design system. So it's not just about the visual design. I'll just wrap up pretty quickly, but the contributors that makes this project happen today, of course, myself, but also Nishan. Again, huge shout out to Nishan. He's been an amazing contributor Mo, through Margello, again, huge shout out. And Alan and Enes, who joined the Showtime team 2 months ago now. They have been incredibly helpful too. So again, very nice job, guys. If you want to become a contributor, just send me a message on Twitter, GitHub, whatever. Find me at the pub. You will be able to claim a badge on Showtime to give you access to cool stuff like early previews, merch, future events like React Paris. I won't say more about it, but stay tuned. And maybe more. And so yeah, that's a very nice opportunity for you to contribute to this ecosystem. And the sponsors, again, only Showtime for now, but I'm chatting with some crazy talented teams. So it's still early, but we'll probably make it happen. And worst case scenario, we are open sourcing this app and the design system. We just give a pretty good example of a real world app. So if you're a new developer or like just new to this stack, it's my way to pay it forward and to give you like a very nice example of how it's done. And the best case scenario, we create a standard for React Universal Apps and people start to sponsor the project and make it sustainable.
Hey, Axel.
Yeah.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
No, okay. Real question. How does your system compares to native base?
That's a good one. Yeah, native base, I actually like really appreciate the work. Met with Sankit in real life last week. And from our team was working on native base actually. So I feel like that's a very good solution for creating a universal app pretty quickly. The thing that I really don't appreciate as a developer myself is the very opinionated way of styling with the design system. So that's really like, we are actually doing the same. So okay for starting a new design system to be opinionated on the styling solution, but I don't really like the utility props. To me, that's like, I've done it in the past. I don't really like it anymore. And I don't know if they want to create unstyled component of the design system. Probably should. But yeah, to me, that's the only difference right now. And also, like, we use this in production with a real world app, so it's probably helpful too. But native base is used by a lot of companies, and now everyone who wants to start a universal app, the default choice is native base. So I really like appreciate the work on all they did. And also, like, I quickly mentioned the accessibility part, but they do a lot of groundbreaking work there. So again, huge respect. But to me, like, that's where I want to go. Again, you probably understand it from listening to me now, but the vision will be to create unstyled components and just good and easy to use APIs, whereas native base will probably still focused on creating visual designs that's work for creating an app very quickly. But that coexists.
First of all, thank you for the talk. It was great. When it comes to like Showtime, what's your testing strategy? For like, you've got the mobile apps, you've got the web apps. How do you test in terms of?
Yeah, it's a mess. Okay, so huge. Okay, I need to check if I have a referral code now, but huge, like really like huge shout out to QA Wolf. We started to use QA Wolf in the past months, and they use Playwright, nicest solution to actually write automated tests, automated end-to-end tests in a browser. It's like Cypress, but better from Microsoft. Seems like everyone is starting to use that now. And the thing is, it still sucks. Like, I don't want to write them, you know? So QA Wolf is actually creating all the tests for you with this nice like shared channel on Slack, with this nice UI, with all the tests. You can see them running. You can get some like pretty nice bug report from their amazing like team of QA engineers. We just set up a linear integration, so now when I have a bug report, it's also on linear, and I can quickly like see if that's something I want to like prioritize. So that's for the web part. The good thing is, if I someday want to stop using QA Wolf, I can just ask them nicely to give me all the tests they wrote. So like the actual code, and also like all of the like script and all the code base they actually created to automate and to facilitate the creation of the test is open source. Everything is open source. And so if someday I just decide to like do this in-house, I can get all my, no, not Cypress, but Playwright test myself. So that's amazing. And for the native part, we are just getting started, but we decided to use Waldo, which is also an end-to-end testing solution. But now I need to, and my team too, need to write the test themselves. But it's not with code, it's a drag and drop editor. Like you can just like, click around and automate your test with a, honestly, like very nice looking. But then, like, again, I probably just need to like test not as much as we do on web, because again, that's a pretty nice perks from having a universal app, but testing your web app is probably a very good proxy for what's already working in your native app, right? So that's why we are going to test extensively on web, not so much on native, but still like the very important flow. So yeah, using Waldo, but I'll need to create the test, take the very nice list of all the test cases we got already working on web and do that on native too. But yeah, that's why we do have some like end-to-end tests, but I started to use Detox and it was pretty hard to get around. So that's why I'm like throwing a lot of money to these crazy companies, but it's worth it. Like I prefer to focus on the design system and stuff that matters than like actually creating a test suite that's very hard to get right. So yeah, QA Wolf, Waldo.com. It's a llama, the logo. It's pretty funny. Is there any other question?
Yeah, I have 31 questions, but probably we need to go to the pub, so I shrink it to 7. But you can optionally answer to it. First is, if this is working with Restyle from Shopify, because obviously Tailwind is fine, but doesn't take the advantage of auto-completion on the TypeScript. Second one, do you have the icons? Any icons? Preferred icons? Then how do you compare to the EVA design and Universal UI Kitten? Because there is already one.
Yep. Okay, so sorry.
Okay, I can stop.
I won't remember anyway. So first question, Restyle. So not today, because we use Tailwind, it's pretty tightly integrated. But yes, definitely that's clearly the vision. If you prefer Restyle, I totally get it and I respect your choice. So not today, but in V2, yeah, you will be able to do that. Again, like that's why I love Tailwind too, but you get pretty nice VS Code integration. So we do have auto-completion with VS Code. And there is also a prettier plugin that you can use to sort all your utility names, like class names. So that's very nice too. Like that's why I like this ecosystem. But that's not the point. Second question was
Icons?
icons. So yes, we do have icons. You can check on Storybook. Again, I found them pretty nice. It could be
Any particular library or your own?
It's the icons that our designer created. I can do a demo, but I guess we are pretty much over time. But
I will adopt you.
I'll show you around later at the pub. And the third question was, how does it compare
EVA design?
To EVA design? I'm not very familiar with EVA design, so I can't really like do a good comparison. But I'd say that again, like we don't want to force you inside like a very opinionated visual design. That's a good demo for now. Like, hey, that's working for us. That's a pretty good looking app, in my opinion. But that's really just because we are just getting started. And so it will compare because it won't be styled. Again, it's counterintuitive, but it will be a design system without visual design. So other questions? Yeah.
About the Android and the width of the screens, are you dynamically adjusting the font size based on the width of the screen. For Android, especially, you know that's the resolution doesn't look good.
Yeah, nope. But we could easily do that, but we don't today.
Do you have the variant support on components?
We have
Or you
some
just
variants.
need to always paste a long string of Tailwind
Yeah,
styles?
so that's a good thing with Tailwind. Like you can do your own variants in the config, and it will be working. We do have some variants for the buttons because it's mostly like yeah, it's changing a lot of different things for the buttons, so it makes sense, and it's the same mental model as we have on Figma, so it's pretty easy to get around. But otherwise, you can just use your styling solution to create variant. In the past, we used Drip from Fernando too, and we do build some variants using Dripsy. But yeah, again, now that we are using Tailwind, you can just do that with Tailwind. And it's also like, again, I'm just like pro Tailwind now, but it's pretty easy to just copy and paste some style. That's a pretty nice perk from using Tailwind.
True. And the last one, because we really need to run, on the React navigation, about the top and bottom navigation tab bars.
Yeah.
Do you support them already, or they need to be?
Yes, we do have the tab bars. We have the tab bar navigator. It's also the same screen, so I haven't showed a native demo, but if you go on iOS and Android, on the app, you will be able to see that. But you saw pretty quickly, but on the web, you can see the tab bar. So it's not using React navigation on web, it's using Next.js router. But I just recreated the same logic, which is pretty simple to use. In retrospect, you just create like these icons and the buttons. But yes, we do use the navigator on React navigation. And I will link to this later on, but I'll link to the exact React navigation navigator initialization, and you will see like it's not rocket science, and that's very nice for us to use a proper native navigation. It's working well. We have all the models and all of this. It's working very well for us. I highly recommend React navigation. Again, huge prop to React navigation.
I remember when React Native was sold as learn once, write everywhere, because it was too much of a compromise to write once and run everywhere. And so what would you say is the main disadvantage of your difficult, some would say foolish, universal endeavor?
Yeah. So we do the hard part. You don't have to do it.
Hey. Yeah. The question is, what's the main, is there a disadvantage? Or is it just...
Oh, there is for us. We are actually making our life a little bit harder, but for the end user, so for the developers who actually like create the UI, who create an app, create features, who create value to the consumers, it's just easier. But yeah, as a library, React Native is doing the hard work.
So there's no compromise at all?
Sorry, come again?
There's no compromise at all?
For you as a developer, no, not really. You need to like go deep in like Expo and Next.js to use our actual like framework, meta framework in a way. So that's only compromise. You need to like want to use Expo and Next.js. But to be fair, I don't know why you do that. Like if you check the keynote at App.js, Expo is now amazing. Like you don't have to eject anymore. You can create a dev client, you can create config plugins if you want to modify native code. So there is literally like no reason why you shouldn't use Expo. And for Next.js, it's like becoming quite like opinionated, but it has been good to me. And again, now we can use proper CSS on web. You can do server-side rendering on web. That's very helpful for SEO and for meta data sharing on Twitter or whatever. So I feel like there is some trade-off if you want to use this stack because it's using frameworks that already pretty opinionated. But on the universal side, it's like if you use them, there is no reason why you shouldn't use universal too. And yeah, again, like we are doing the hard work. If you want to contribute, you will do some of the hard work. But for the developers who just want to build an app quickly, and to be fair, like I'm pretty selfish, but I want this library for my own side projects. I do have a side project. I can't really like create a slider, a menu, a modal, a bottom sheet, like all these crazy components. But I still want a nice UI on my app. I still want a pretty nice UX, because I will be using this app pretty often. But if I only do that during the weekend, that sucks. I can't really do that. So the goal is really to only focus on what matters as a developer is to create your feature. So yeah, we want to really like make it so easy to use that you don't really have a choice. Like it's so easy that you definitely need to do that. But yeah, for the ones who are brave enough to create these components with the way I show, like having a component for web, for native, for iOS, and like for iOS and Android, and maybe soon for desktop, it's a lot of work. It's pretty hard to get your head around, but that's for the good cause. And I truly think that's the future of React. So I'm happy to be a part of it.